Hi and welcome. Don't fall off your chairs, but I'm back with a video after almost 3 years of no videos. I had things happen in my life and making a video was the last thing I wanted to do. But I made a card last week and I really liked it, so I wanted to film it. This is using the latest sketch app, Freshly Made Sketches, and as you would have seen, I needed to do a colour block design, and so I went looking through my dies and found this die from Paper Tray Ink and did some partial die cutting to get the shapes that I wanted. So I cut two, one for my mask and one for the finished card. Now, as you can see, I'm just here taking some post-it tape, the 2-inch wide variety, and masking off the outsides of my card. I'm going to ink blend onto Bristol Smooth cardstock using Distress Oxide inks and my little rainbow finger blending tool thingamybobs. So I'm going to start with picked raspberry, and I'll just take the little pink blending tool, and off to the side I have a paper towel that I will use periodically to clean the ink as I'm blending between colours. So we start with picked raspberry, as I said. I just grab a little bit on the brush and I'm going to start in that bottom right corner. Now I deliberately don't want to keep it horizontal, and I want to keep it so that it goes across the various squares. So now I'm onto candied apple, and I'm going to blend that over top of the picked raspberry, and then I'm going to get the brush for picked raspberry and go back over that to try and smooth out that blend a bit. And I'm going to do that right through all of the various colours that I've chosen until that whole panel is filled up. I'm going to speed it up now because it's the same old, and you'll just get to see the different colours being blended. So there's carved pumpkin, and now there's mustard seed, and then twisted citron, peacock feathers is the tealy blue, chipped sapphire, I think. Chipped sapphire is the dark blue colour. And then we finish with the wilted violet shade. And as you can see, when I'm working on the left-hand panel, I'm also going across into the right-hand panel to try and make it look a little bit more organic. Once I've finished, I'm going to dry that ink off, and then I'm going to get the Tailored Expressions Bokeh stencils and stencil over that with some unicorn white ink from Hero Arts. I keep a blending brush especially for white ink, so I've pulled that out, and don't look now, but I've started with the wrong stencil. I don't work that out for myself though until the very end, so don't do what I do. So I'm just blending some white ink over and cleaning off the brush so I'm not transferring ink back to my ink pad, and I'll just do that for all three of the stencils that come in this set. Again, I've sped this up so you don't have to watch the boring bits. Put the second stencil on, which is actually the third stencil. Perhaps I should have followed the instructions. And now I bring the first stencil. I'm going, oops, realised that this should have gone on first. But anyway, it turns out all right in the end. Looks like a hot mess here, but once the white ink dries back a bit, it doesn't look quite so bad. So I'll dry that off, and then I will remove the masks to see the finished result. This is always the exciting bit. And here we have the finished panel. Now you could leave this as it is. Oh yeah, I've got a little bit of extra white ink there that I'm trying to get rid of, but I end up covering that up with the sentiment later, so it's not a big deal. You could, as I said, you could leave this as it is, but I took another frame, and after I'd adhered that Bristol Smooth panel to the card base, I use some liquid glue to put the second frame on top, just to give it a little bit of added dimension. Totally optional. I'm using the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium ink here, which is still I use all the time. So I'll just drop this into place and then work on the rest of the elements of my card. Put a couple of blocks on it to keep that weighted down. Now this is the Simon Says Stamp eucalyptus leaves die, and I've cut 3 of the large leaf set, and I'm going to use some spray adhesive to adhere all those together to add more dimension to the card and some stability to these leaves, because the stems are pretty thin and flimsy. So I'll do this off camera, but I use the ADOS multi-purpose adhesive as my spray adhesive. So they're all stuck together now, and now I'm going to get some black cardstock and do my white embossed sentiment. So I've just rubbed that down with my anti-static powder bag. I'm going to use the Itty Bitty Birthday Wishes, I think it's called, from My Favourite Things. Just a simple birthday wishes sentiment. I'm going to stamp that in Versamark using an acrylic block. Going old school, not even getting my MISTI. And then I will add some Hero Arts white embossing powder and heat that with my heat tool. Now I use a needle tool to get away any stray bits of embossing powder, because I do not trust myself with a dry paintbrush. And I find the needle tool works really well just for flicking those little stray bits off. So I'm just heating up my heat gun, taking it to the cardstock and watching that melt. And once that's all melted and dried, I will get the Simon Says Stamp Sentiment Strips dies and take the smallest, thinnest one to cut a really thin frame around that sentiment. Now I'm going to position everything and make sure it all fits. These little fuzzy bits, so I take my sanding block, and can you see the little dog teeth marks in there? That's from our puppy. Our puppy is nearly 10 years old, and when he was a puppy he got that sanding block, and I still use it to this day, so they do last a long time, trust me. So I'm just trimming down the sides of the sentiment so it fits, and I'm going to line that right side up with the outside edge of the frame of the blocked frame die cut. Add some liquid glue, pop that into place. And I did get my T-square ruler to straighten. I thought, I don't need that, I can work it out for myself. So I sort of pretended I used it, but I didn't really. And now I'll get some more liquid glue and adhere those leaves down to the cardstock as well. And that is the card finished. So what I've got coming up is, this is the second card I made, because as I said earlier, I made a card and I really liked it. So I have got both cards here coming up, which both pretty much look the same. But the other card has got the stencils arranged in the right order. So as I say, it looks pretty much the same. The one on the right I think does look slightly better. I think the bokeh looks a little bit more natural. But they are my cards. So thank you so much for spending this time with me, and who knows, I might make another video within the next 3 years. See ya.